You weren't a coward, you were conditioned. There's a big difference between failing out of weakness and never trying because of programming. And the cruelest thing is that this programming started when you didn't even know how to speak yet. Maybe it was that time your mother hurriedly pulled your hand and said, "Be careful," when you just wanted to get close to a dog. Or that first public speaking class where you stuttered and the class laughed. At that moment, your mind didn't just register a mistake, it installed a code. Exposing yourself is dangerous. From then on, every opportunity was treated as a threat. You grew up afraid to shine. The most perverse thing, they convinced you that this was prudence. But prudence was never about hiding. Prudence is acting consciously, not refusing to do something out of insecurity. But no one told you that. And so, your greatest enemy was born. Fear disguised as common sense. An invisible ghost that shapes every word you swallow, every glance you look away from, every chance you watch pass by while mentally repeating, "I'm not ready yet." Neuroscience has already uncovered the root of this. In your brain, the amygdala, the part responsible for processing threats, reacts with alarm to any new situation. It's the amygdala that gives you butterflies when you see a beautiful woman or are called to speak in public. But the problem isn't the amygdala. The problem is that your prefrontal cortex, responsible for deciding whether this alarm makes sense or not, has never been trained. The result? Every unusual situation becomes a risk. Every risk becomes a danger. And every danger paralyzes you. You have been emotionally domesticated. And the worst part is that this domestication was sold as maturity. But what if I told you that this fear is 90% of the time fabricated? In a psychological study with babies, newborns were exposed to animals that would provoke fear in any adult. Snakes, spiders, rats. None of them reacted with terror. They touched, explored, smiled. What does this show? That fear is not born with you. It is taught, installed, conditioned, and usually by someone who claimed to be protecting you. Most of your social fears, talking to a woman, expressing yourself in public, being rejected, are not yours. They are inheritances. Emotional baggage that you have accepted as your identity. Fear that you have never audited, but that still governs your decisions. And what is most perverse about all this? This fear wears the mask of caution. It tells you that you are shy, reserved, that this is not your style. But the truth? This style is just the version you adopted to survive emotionally in a world that taught you that standing out was dangerous. But there is a detail that no one talks about. The more you feed this fear, the more it believes it is right. Your mind is a prediction factory. And if you never act, it never updates the data. That is why a simple, bold act can be more transformative than 1,000 motivational videos. Because it is in the act that you break the pattern. That's why extraordinary men make lists of what they fear most, and one by one destroy these ghosts. Not because they want to prove something, but because they understand that running away from discomfort is to remain small. And there is no legacy in smallness. Deep down, you feel it. Life is calling you back to the front lines. And maybe, just maybe, this video is the call your soul has been waiting for, to declare war on the ghost that has been living inside you. Because if there is one thing more dangerous than fear, it is getting used to living with it. You might think that the opposite of fear is courage, but in fact, the opposite of fear is identity. When a man knows who he is, fear loses its function. Doubt evaporates. Hesitation is silenced. Authentic masculine energy doesn't need to be explained, defended, or validated. It just is. Presence, direction, clarity. But what happens when this energy is tamed? When a man is trained from an early age to mistake humility for effacement, it disappears, and in its place emerges a socially acceptable version. The nice guy, the kind, the polite, and the completely irrelevant. You were taught not to look too much, to hold back, to measure your words, to disguise your intentions. Phrases like "don't draw attention to yourself," "don't show off," "don't push yourself," were hammered into your soul until you believed that daring was arrogance, that standing out was a character flaw, that expressing desire was invasive. And so, drop by drop, your masculine energy was drained, replaced by an apathetic, passive, and emotionally castrated version of yourself. And this isn't just your problem. It's a historical phenomenon. Modern culture has been sabotaging the masculine archetype for decades. Men have been criticized for leading, for taking the initiative, for flirting openly. Everything that was once synonymous with strength is now treated as a threat. But nature doesn't care about social narratives. Nature responds to energy. And masculine energy, when active, continues to be the ignition point of feminine desire. This isn't machismo. This is polarity. The psychology of attraction is clear. Desire is born of contrast. Masculine in presence, feminine in surrender. Not because one is greater than the other, but because they are opposites that complement each other. The bold man, the one who speaks his mind, who moves with intention, who enters a room and changes the mood, represents this pull. He doesn't need to shout. He doesn't need to confront. His mere existence is enough for everyone around him to react. Because your energy communicates, I am here, and I don't need your permission to exist. But let's go beyond theory. Why is boldness, in fact, a profoundly masculine behavior? Because it requires breaking the cycle of external validation. The bold man doesn't wonder if people will like it. He wonders if it is consistent with his principles. And if it is, he acts. Even if they judge him, even if they laugh, even if they don't understand. Because his action is not to convince, it is to affirm, I am this here. Nietzsche wrote, "What is good? Everything that increases the feeling of power in man." And he wasn't talking about power over others, but about power over oneself, over one's instincts, one's will, one's expression. Boldness is the purest form of this power, because it arises when you act even without applause, even without certainty, even without support. The man who dares conveys a sense of inevitability. It's as if the world had to adapt to his presence and not the other way around. But how can we recover this code if it has been buried by years of self-denial? The answer is simple and brutal: through practice. What has been programmed by habit can only be rewritten by the shock of action. And it all starts verbally. Boldness begins when you stop pruning every sentence for fear of displeasing. When you look a woman in the eyes and say firmly, "You are interesting." It is not a pickup line. It is an affirmation, a reflection of someone who is not afraid of being too much. Then comes the nonverbal. The way you walk, your clothes, your pace, your gaze. The outfit you choose can be armor or handcuffs. It screams, "I am ready to be noticed," or "I want to hide." And everyone picks it up, even without knowing how. The voice, the tone, the pause. Everything communicates authority or submission. Boldness is a silent language, a code that men have forgotten but that bodies still recognize. When you start dressing like someone who wants to be seen, when you stand in a circle without shrinking, when you express an unpopular opinion respectfully, but without apology, you are resetting the code. Little by little, your mind, which was previously seeking to protect itself, begins to seek territory. Your presence begins to be noticed. Your word gains weight. Your energy polarizes. And then comes the magic. You no longer have to prove anything, because when the world feels that you have approved of yourself, it begins to follow you. Without begging for attention, just by being who you already are. When you stop hiding. Saying "I'm shy" sounds innocent. It even seems cute. But this phrase, repeated as an identity, is social suicide disguised as a characteristic. Modern man has learned to hide behind acceptable labels. He doesn't say, "I'm afraid of being rejected." He says, "I'm reserved." He doesn't confess, "I don't know how to position myself in front of women." He says, "I'm introspective." And so, covered by soft words, he distances himself from his own power. But the truth is uncomfortable. Shyness is not a fixed trait. It's just a behavior conditioned by the lack of exposure to discomfort. Shyness is accumulated fear. Fear that has never been challenged. Fear that has become armor. Only now, this armor keeps you away from everything you want. Being shy is comfortable. It's justifiable. It's socially accepted. But it's also the shortest path to invisibility. No one wants the lukewarm. No one respects the absent. And what's even crueler, no one falls in love with someone who apologizes for existing. The shy person is not kind. He is silent. And while he shrinks, the bold take what could be his. Because in the real world, the prize does not go to those who wait. It goes to those who act, with or without certainty. There is a powerful analogy here. An angry dog does not bite those who exude leadership. It attacks those who waver, who tremble, who hesitate. Why? Because in the animal and social world, energy is what defines the role, hunter or prey. The shy man exudes the energy of doubt, and this instinctively puts him at the bottom of the hierarchy. You may not like it, but that is exactly why you need to change. The cure for shyness is not found in self-help books, nor in affirmations in the mirror. It lies in directly confronting the situations that make you retreat. There is a 7-second window between impulse and mental sabotage. If you act in that interval, you win. A look held for 2 seconds too long. A sentence said without thinking too much. A bold question asked before the mind edits. Small acts that reprogram your perception of risk. And every time you do this, you send a message to your own brain. I am safe, I can do it. The world doesn't need another guy full of good intentions who dies with words stuck in his throat. The world needs men who stand up even when they're shaking, who speak even when they don't know how they'll be received, who dare even when they have no guarantees. Because that's what inspires, that's what attracts, that's what transforms. You don't have to be the most handsome or the strongest, but you do have to be the most present, the most whole, the most available for action. Because at the end of the day, no one falls in love with shyness, but everyone respects and desires those who had the courage to show themselves, even when it was easier to hide. You don't have to wait to be accepted to allow yourself to act. The world respects those who approve of themselves first. Boldness is not about shouting, it's about presence, about walking through the room with a clear purpose, about looking someone in the eye and saying with your body, I'm not here to be tolerated, I'm here to be remembered. The big lie is that you need permission. The big truth is that it will never come. And that's why the bold dominate, because they understand that fear won't go away, but life won't wait either. Comment below, when was the moment you realized you were hiding? And if this video touched you in any way, share it with those who still believe that being shy is destiny. And remember, boldness is not aggression. It's the purest expression of your freedom. Daring isn't about appearing too much. It's about finally being yourself completely.